Mr. Adams brought up some points that we do want to dive deeper into. How can you convince voters that your time in office will not resemble your Democratic predecessor if you so are elected?
Certainly have been the victims of a lot of political witch hunts, no doubt, and investigations. And so when you talk about, are you going to be vocal about things that you're just a bystander to, there are a couple of quotes I always tell my children. And one is, the wiser a person is, the less talkative that they will be. I've learned there are three sides to every story, your side, my side, and somewhere the truth. I do not think that it is a candidate's place throughout my history that I am probably in this entire election the most nonpartisan person.
She was Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman with Jerry Lundergan, of all people. That's pretty political, it sounds like to me.
And I would have to lean on, some of my other cohorts in the National Association of Secretary of State.
The number one policy objective legislatively is to require a photo ID to vote in Kentucky's elections.
It's a photo identification to vote. How do you land on that, Ms. Henry?
Well, I think this is actually a really interesting subject. I think it would be worth a very serious discussion.
Mrs. Henry's had 4 different positions on this that I've been able to track. She came out against it on this program 6 months ago. She came out in favor of requiring photo ID in the Courier-Journal back in May. She came out against it in Bowling Green on television a couple of weeks ago, and now she's in favor of a conversation, whatever that is. I think we need someone with strong leadership on this issue.
Clarify your position, as Mr. Adams said, that you've kind of vacillated.
Well, first,
yes.
So this entire process is really interesting. Open primaries have become a very interesting source of discussion. So it will be very interesting to see what that discussion is.
Mr. Adams, you have a position on open primaries?
Well, Mrs. Henry's position is always, let's have a conversation or discussion. I'll give you an actual position. I'm against it.
Ms. Henry, I do want to go to a point that Mr. Adams just made about having conversations. And you've said several times tonight that you are open to conversations about issues without exactly giving us a position. So explain your position to a point that Mr. Adams made earlier, and it's part of your platform, Mrs. Henry, about adding other languages to the election process. And you mentioned this in the primary, and you were on before. Explain more about what you mean by that. Do you mean ballots in different languages? What exactly do you mean by...
Well, this actually came from a questionnaire where literally it said, do you agree with ballots in other languages? And it was a very simple sort of...
Other languages. This is just another example of a mandate Mrs. Henry wants that would cost the counties money. The counties, they can't even afford decent machines that count paper.
I want to be kind. I do think we have to consider...
Mr. Adams, what's your view about automatic voting rights restoration for certain nonviolent offenders?
Well, sure. Mrs. Henry's position is we should, quote, consider this. That's her answer to every question is let's converse, consider. I actually want to lead in this office.
I'm not quite sure